Hello and welcome to this introduction to special collections and archives. In this session we will be looking at what special collections are, what the advantages are of using special collections and archives in your research. We'll have a look at some of the collections we hold in the library here at Essex, and there will also be some practical tips on using special collections and on how to find collections, as well as tips on how to prepare for a visit to another library or archive. Firstly then, what are special collections? Special collections are made up of materials that are stored under controlled conditions and with limited access, for some or all of the reasons listed here. The materials might be very rare or very old. They might be in a format that's difficult to store in the normal library setting. It might be a condition laid down by the person who donated the materials that they be stored separately and with limited access. And finally, the content of the materials could be sensitive or offensive. So now we know what special collections are, why might you want to use them? There's potential for original research. Some collections haven't been used much by other researchers, so you have the opportunity to break new ground. The collections will cover a range of subjects and time periods from the historical to the modern. Many collections contain primary source materials, and access to collections has improved greatly over the last few years, with online finding aids and digitised materials. Support is available not only from lecturers but from library and archive staff. And finally, it's important to remember that special collections are for everyone. Special collections often contain primary sources. These are materials created by the people or during the time period being studied. There's a huge variety of materials that count as primary sources. Some of them you might expect, like artworks, diaries and manuscripts, but primary sources can also include things like data and news reports. Using primary sources will benefit your research, as it allows you to access original materials without the filter of criticism and interpretation by other authors. When you are using materials from special collections, particularly if you are using primary sources, there are some things you should consider. Firstly, authenticity. Is the material what it appears to be? Next, you should consider the possibility of bias. Was the material you are looking at created to give a misleadingly negative or positive view of a person or a group of people? This is connected to the next point, the historical and social context. If you're looking at a government publication, did that government actively discriminate against groups of the population? If this is so, it's likely to be reflected in their publications. Some of the oldest books in our collection date from the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, when England was at war with Spain and Catholicism was effectively illegal in this country. So any communications issued by Parliament or by the Church of England would show strong bias against both Spain and against the Catholic Church. The next point is to consider the physical object you're looking at. Was a book bound in leather with gilded details to appeal to rich collectors, or was it produced in a cheap edition to ensure quick sales and wide distribution? Did an artist make drawings in a sketchbook or scribble them on the back of an envelope? How does a writer's handwriting change between formal and informal documents? Considering the materiality of an object as well as its content will give important insights that aren't provided by the content alone. When you're using materials from special collections, particularly if you're going to quote from the materials in your work, you need to consider both confidentiality and copyright. People who have participated in sociological studies will have given consent for a certain amount of information to be used for the purposes of the study, but that consent may not extend beyond the study itself. If you're looking at letters or other personal papers, you may need to check that the person who wrote them or their descendants are happy for them to be referenced or reproduced. If you have any questions about confidentiality or the copyright of the materials you are using, check with staff who will be happy to advise you. So, where can special collections be found? Historically, special collections have tended to be stored in libraries, dedicated archives or museums. Some organisations will hold their own archives, as will individuals, if they haven't donated them to a library or museum. Increasingly, special collections are becoming available online as materials are digitised. Now we'll have a look at some of the collections we have here at Essex. A quick overview. The library holds more than 70 individual special collections. The collections cover a variety of subject areas and time periods, and are local, national and international in scope. We are a library, but our collections don't just contain books. Some collections include artworks or objects that belong to the subject of the collection, like sunglasses, awards or binoculars. Details of printed books in the collections can be found using the library search on the website, and the 6 largest book collections can be searched individually. I'll show you how that works in a few moments. Now to have a look at a selection of our collections. It's not a surprise that the library is home to the University of Essex collection. This is an archive of the university from its foundation and includes policy and committee papers, prospectuses and course guides and press cuttings. There is also a section dedicated to the student protests and unrest of the late 1960s and early 70s. The university photo archive has been digitised and is available on Flickr. J. A. Baker, ornithologist and nature writer, is best known for his book The Peregrine, first published in 1967, in which he recorded his observations of the bird life of East Anglia and drew attention to the fact that many species were at risk of extinction. The book is a landmark in nature writing and has been reissued several times. The archive we hold at the library contains notebooks, maps, letters and diaries, as well as optical artefacts, including the binoculars used by Baker in the field. The National Social Policy and Social Change Archive, also known as Qualidata, is a collection of original research data relating to studies undertaken by a number of eminent sociologists, including Peter Townsend's study Family Life and Work Experience Before 1918, and Jan Pahl's study of domestic violence and women's refuges. The Gaudier-Brzeska collection contains letters from the artist and sculptor Henri Gaudier-Brzeska to his partner Sophie. Many of the letters are illustrated, and some were written during Henri's time in the army during the First World War. He was killed in action in 1915. The collection also contains Sophie Gaudier-Brzeska's diaries and a selection of her unpublished writings. A collection that was deposited at the library relatively recently, the World War I Community Centenary Collection contains materials created by community groups to mark the 100 years anniversary of the 1914-18 war. The commemorative projects were supported by the National Lottery Heritage Fund and took many forms, from books and exhibitions to community operas and ballets. Many of the groups chose to focus on stories and contributions from members of the community that had been previously overlooked in official histories. Now we'll have a look at the Special Collections web pages, where you can find information about our collections and advice on planning your visit. Scroll down the library web page until you find the link for Special Collections and click on the link. In the centre of the Special Collections page, you'll see tabs where the collections are divided into subject areas. There may be some crossover, as some collections fit into 2 subjects. Clicking on the link will show you an alphabetical list of the collections that fit with that subject area. You may also see a Word document, an Excel file, or a PDF that will give you a list of the content of the collection. At the side of the page is the News and Updates column, where we can update you on visiting hours and other updates. And at the bottom of the page, you'll find a gallery showing some of the highlights of our collections. Going back to the library homepage, we'll now look at how to search within one of our big collections. Click on Advanced Search and then use the location limit to choose which collection you wish to search inside. Choosing a collection will narrow your research and make your search more accurate. As well as the physical collections, the library provides access to archive materials online from a variety of sources. Some examples of the sorts of resources we have available are listed here. We have access to newspaper archives, including Nexus and Gale News Vault, and historical primary sources, for example from Gale Primary Sources. Government publications can be found in UK parliamentary papers or public information online. And there is also social research data. The example given here is mass observation online. To find an online collection, you can use the main search box and enter the name of the resource. We'll have a look at the website for a quicker way to locate an online collection. So rather than typing the resource name into the box, if you click on Advanced Search and then choose the eResources A to Z tab at the top of the page, this will take you to an alphabetical list of databases. If you know the name of the database you want to use, you can just click on the letter that begins its name and you'll be dropped into the list at the appropriate place. You can see here Gale Primary Sources and Gender, Identity and Social Change. You can also use the drop-down to find subject groupings of resources. So clicking on the subject name will take you through to resources that just cover that subject area. When you're researching, you may find you need to access materials held by other institutions. How would you go about finding them? Two very useful tools are Discovery from the National Archives and Archives Hub from JISC. Discovery lets you search for archives held either at the National Archives themselves or in other archive collections in the UK. And Archives Hub has a similar function, but also includes special collections materials. Now that things are opening up a bit more, it's possible to visit some archives and libraries to look at materials in person again. But you should always check in advance to make sure that the materials you want will be available and check what the conditions are for access. In terms of open access repositories, some of the materials held at the National Archives can be accessed through their website, and the British Library has online access to a selection of resources including theses, digitised manuscripts and the Sound Archive. Searching these collections is usually free, but there may be a charge if you want to download materials. Time to talk about the internet. A lot of material is produced today that has never existed in any physical format. The question of how to archive materials that have only ever existed in electronic form, particularly on the internet, is a difficult one, but one which will need to be addressed. Here are a few sources of archived internet content. In the UK, there's the UK Web Archive, which is a British Library project that has been running since 2004 and aims to capture what are described as valuable and interesting websites that can be then browsed by subject. In terms of official publications, the UK Government Web Archive is a source of historical government web pages and publications. In terms of global web archives, the Internet Archive is a non-profit project that aims to offer permanent access to historical digital collections. And Wayback Machine, which has been running since 1996, has so far preserved over 300 billion web pages. Now away from the virtual world and back to the actual. If you want to come and use special collections, you're welcome to visit the reading room on floor 1 of the library. You'll need to make an appointment first, so email libline@essex.ac.uk and we will make the arrangements. Current COVID protection rules apply in the reading room, as in the rest of the library, and there are details of those on the website, where there are also details of the rules of the reading room. Put simply, these rules are no food, no drink, and no ink. Food and drink are not allowed in the reading room, and any written notes you take must be made in pencil to avoid the risk of getting ink on the materials. Our current opening hours are also on the website. Finally, the best way to keep up with information and guidance from the library is to keep an eye on our webpage or follow us on social media. We're at Uni Essex Library on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, and updates about access to the collections will be posted here as well as on the website. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this introduction, and we look forward to seeing you soon.